There was a time when the drag strip was ruled by raw American muscle. No launch control, no computer tuning, and no electronic system stepping in to save the driver. Just giant V8s, fearless men behind the wheel, and quarter-mile monsters that built their legends one brutal launch at a time. Every green light meant noise, smoke, and a kind of acceleration that pushed people back into the stands. These are the 10 legendary muscle cars that dominated the drag strip. Machines that didn't just race, they owned the quarter mile. Number 10. 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge. The 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge earned respect on the drag strip because it brought serious Ram Air V8 power in a body that already had attitude. Official horsepower numbers never fully captured how strong this car felt once the light turned green. It launched hard, carried speed through the quarter mile, and quickly became a favorite among drivers who wanted both street presence and strip credibility. What made it legendary was the way it blended style with real performance. Number 9. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 shocked a lot of people at the strip. Buick wasn't supposed to be the drag racing hero, but the massive 455 V8 and its mountain of torque changed that instantly. The power came in low and brutally hard, making the launch feel almost violent. It was the kind of car that could embarrass more famous names, because once it hooked up, it pulled like a freight train. On the strip, it became one of the most feared sleeper-style muscle cars of the era. Number 8. 1968 Dodge Dart HEMI Superstock. The 1968 Dodge Dart HEMI Superstock looked compact, but once that 4-6 HEMI came alive, it became pure strip violence. Chrysler dropped one of its most brutal engines into one of its lightest bodies, creating a power-to-weight monster. The front wheels often lifted at launch, and the sound alone made people stop what they were doing. What made it legendary was how unfair it felt against bigger, heavier rivals. This was a small body drag terror built for domination. Number 7. 1969 Copo Camaro 47. The 1969 Copo Camaro 47 became a drag strip legend because it felt like a secret weapon. Dealer built and powered by a brutal 427 big block, it had the kind of quarter-mile performance that instantly earned respect. The launch was sharp, the engine note was deep and aggressive, and every shift seemed to hit the strip like another hammer blow. Drivers loved it because it looked like a Camaro, but ran like a dedicated race machine. Quick question for the real muscle car fans watching. Which one of these drag strip legends do you think had the most brutal launch? The kind that lifted the front wheels, shook the pavement, and made everyone in the stands stop and stare? Drop your pick in the comments. I'd love to know which one you'd line up at the quarter mile. Number 6. 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner 426 HEMI. The 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner 426 HEMI was built for one purpose: brutal, straight-line domination. The legendary HEMI power plant delivered explosive launches, and once it left the line cleanly, very few cars of its time could keep up. On the drag strip, it became known for violent acceleration and a roar that echoed through the grandstands. It didn't need luxury or refinement, it just needed the quarter mile. Quick question for the real drag racing fans watching. Which one of these legends do you think had the most feared launch on the strip? Number 5. 1963 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. The 1963 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt was one of the most purpose-built drag strip monsters ever sold to the public. Lightweight panels, a stripped interior, and the mighty 427 V8 made it a nightmare for anything lined up beside it. The launch was savage, often lifting the nose while the rear tires clawed into the strip. This wasn't just a muscle car that happened to be good at drag racing. It was built to dominate from day one. Number 4. 1969 Camaro ZL1. The 1969 Camaro ZL1 was one of the rarest and most feared drag strip legends of its era. Under the hood sat an all-aluminum 427 V8, officially rated at 430 horsepower, though everyone knew the real number was much higher. In a lightweight Camaro shell, that kind of power turned every launch into an event. The rear tires fought for grip, the front end lifted, and the car charged down the quarter mile with the kind of force that made spectators lean forward. What made the ZL1 legendary was how advanced it felt for its time. Lighter, quicker, and more explosive than almost anything else at the strip. Number 3. 1965 Dodge Coronet A990. 1965 Dodge Coronet A990. The 1965 Dodge Coronet A990 was pure Hemi drag strip domination at its finest. Chrysler didn't build this car for comfort, style, or everyday driving. It was engineered with one goal in mind: to own the quarter mile. Lightweight fiberglass panels, stripped interior pieces, and race-focused tuning made it far lighter than a normal Coronet, giving it an immediate edge the moment the lights dropped. Under the hood sat the legendary 4.6 Hemi V8, an engine that delivered savage launches and explosive mid-range pull. When this car left the line, the front wheels often came off the ground before the crowd could even process what they were seeing. The launch felt like a shockwave, with the roar of the Hemi echoing across the strip and through the grandstands. What made it unforgettable was the intimidation factor. This wasn't just a car that won races. It looked, sounded, and moved like it had already decided the outcome before the run even began. Number 2. 1970 Hemi Cuda. The 1970 Hemi Cuda became one of the greatest strip legends because it combined brutal Hemi power with unmistakable presence. Powered by the legendary 4.6 Hemi, this car delivered violent acceleration and one of the most memorable launches of the muscle car era. Drivers knew the moment the light turned green they were holding on to something special. The rear tires dug hard, the engine roared deep, and every pass felt dramatic. It wasn't just fast, it carried the kind of reputation that made people gather around it before and after every run. This was the drag strip icon everyone remembered. Number 1. 1970 Chevelle SS 454 LS6. At number 1 is the 1970 Chevelle SS 454 LS6, the muscle car that truly ruled the drag strip. With a factory-rated 450 horsepower from its massive 454 big block, this machine delivered crushing torque and one of the most violent launches ever experienced in a production muscle car. The rear tires dug into the strip so hard, it felt like the pavement itself responded. Every gear change hit like thunder, and every run built the Chevelle's legend even more. What made it number 1 wasn't just speed, it was dominance. This was the quarter-mile king, the car that defined drag strip power for an entire generation. These muscle cars didn't just race the quarter mile, they built the reputation of American drag racing itself. Before computer tuning, launch control, and electronic systems, it was all about displacement, traction, and the courage of the driver behind the wheel. Every launch was mechanical, physical, and unforgettable. That's why these legends still live on today. So now I want to ask you, which one of these drag strip kings would you line up in first?